Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Well, not ruminators, but good afternoon. I think that this is the Elijah channel, and I'm so accustomed to publishing on my rumination channel. But those of you who like present truth as it relates to the three angels' messages, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And today we'll look at the Pope, right? Pope Leo XIV, who is deemed to be the Pope of the people, the Pope of workers. Now, if you study the history of popery and you look at the at his predecessors, that's the current Pope's predecessors, Pope Leo XIV, we want to look specifically at Pope Leo XIII, the one that's his predecessor. He was also known as the Pope of workers, the Pope who defended the rights of the working class. Now, we must understand that during the 19th century, in which Pope Leo XIII reigned, remember now that Pope Leo XIII was Pope from 1878 to 1903. Now, during that time, that was the peak of the Industrial Revolution that was in the West, particularly in the United States. Now, a lot of eyes were on the United States because the United States was growing rapidly as a power. And by the likes of the 1880s, had started to outgrow Britain and to eclipse it as the economic power of the world. That is how fast the United States was growing. But in spite of the growth that the United States was experiencing, many of its people, particularly the working class people, were particularly poor. And the robber barons, right, the oligarchs, the elites of the United States, were not particularly interested in sharing the wealth with the people. And the way in which the workers had to work and the obscene, plants and factories in which they have to work and the lack of rights that, often were not a part of that infrastructure, it was of concern to the general populace. Now, if we understand the history of Roman Catholicism, they too believe in absolute tyranny. But because the Roman Catholic Church had lost its power, and that's its political seat. It still had a religious sway over its adherents, but it had lost its political sway and power over nations, particularly the nations of Europe. And remember now that the United States, its descendants would have been heretics because they were at the time largely a Protestant nation. Now, Pope Leo XIII, wanting to have the Catholic Church reinvent itself and to restore the power that it once had to sort of adapt to the religious and the political climate in the world, around the world, particularly in the United States. Now, I understand based on my reading that Pope Leo XIII condemned Americanism. He did not like the whole matter of individuality because the church believes that wherever they are, they should control people and they should have the right to do so. In my reading of the book, The Vatican in World Politics by Avril Manhattan, yesterday I was on the topic of reading the Vatican's connection to Hitler. That's Adolf Hitler. That's Germany's Hitler during Nazism. Now it's amazing how the Pope brought Hitler to power under the former Pope. That's Cardinal Eugenio Pacelli, who was then the cardinal there, domiciled in Germany, and supported Hitler in everything that he did. However, they did have a concordat, and the concordat suggested that that the Roman Catholic Church should have influence over its people and its schools, and that the Nazi, the Chancellor of Germany, should not interfere with what Rome does in the school system and the indoctrination of the youth. However, not long before, the two tyrannical powers, that's not Nazi, the Nazi power and the Roman Catholic power, they were not, agreeing because you have these two powers that were tyrannical and they were on the same spot. As we say, two bulls cannot live in the same pen, right? They won't survive in the same pen. And the Roman Catholic Church wanted to dominate, and Nazi Germany also under Hitler wanted to dominate. So soon each was overriding the other. And what happened is that the United States, not the United States, the Roman Catholic papacy, because they always, wherever they are, they should have the dominant control, decided that they would undermine Hitler's power. But what I'm suggesting here is to show you how the Roman Catholic Church can pretend as if it is for a people. At the same time, it supports, economic and political tyranny and religious tyranny of the people. So here you had in Germany a tyrant in the person of Hitler, yet the Roman Catholic papacy supported Hitler because at the time Hitler had signed a concordat with the Roman Catholic papacy, which gave the Roman Catholic Church sway over Germany, which was predominant at the time, over 50% Protestant. But it was the intention of the Roman Catholic papacy to control Germany and to restore her hegemonic power over that country. So it supported Hitler, knowing that its final agenda was to overthrow Hitler and to finally be the ultimate power in Germany, right? So that was something interesting. So here we had the Pope Leo XIII, who wanted to have power over the United States and the Industrial Revolution, but because the Roman Catholic papacy had lost its seat, its political seat, its power, it was not able to do so. So what it did, it created this sort of compromise where it was suggesting that, okay, we are on the side of the workers, but they were not. They were just there acting as a chameleon, pretending to be what they're not, so that the workers would think that the Roman Catholic papacy was in sympathy with their demands and with their concerns, their labor concerns. So it's in that vein that Pope Leo XIII wrote Rerum Novarum, which means new things, in which he outlined the injustices of the Industrial Revolution. But we must understand that the Industrial Revolution also revolutionized the world in terms of creating, large numbers of people who were also wealthy, who were before, if they were living in Catholic Europe, they would have been poor. So while the United States had a lot of growing up to do and had to improve on workers' working conditions, but we know that the Roman Catholic papacy is not in tandem with improving the lives of workers, because what they want are poor people who they can control. And if you look at the predominantly Catholic countries in which the Roman Catholic Church holds sway, you will see that that is what happens. Most of their parishioners are poor and they control them. And Latin America is a prime example. However, we're hearing that this Pope is the Pope of the people and of workers. And for that reason, he chose the name Pope Leo XIV in honor of his predecessor, Pope Leo XIII. Now, we are living in a post-industrial revolution era in which we have been deindustrialized, and we are living now in this AI world, post-human AI world, in which workers are not, in terms of human workers, are not going to be, it's going to be the thing of the past. It's not going to be the norm anymore. We are transitioning into having robots and machines be the new workers. Now, is Pope Leo XIV sent to reform the society? Because we know that Pope Leo XIII was also known to have been a reformer. And what will be his reform? How will he defend the rights of human beings, or will he be on the side of this AI development? If we are diligent students of our Bible, we must understand that this church, this harlot church, controls the merchants of the world. And by merchants, we mean all of these wealthy people, right? The billionaires and the oligarchs. The Roman Catholic Church controls them. And that is why Avro Manhattan in the Vatican in World Politics suggested that even though in the 1940s, Henry Luce, the American oligarch, I think he was a journalist, right? He said that it was the American century, right? He said that America, I think it was 1943, that he described as the American century. Could have been a little later. But as Avro Manhattan said in the Vatican in World Politics, he's suggesting that this might not be the American century, since we're transitioning from the Industrial Revolution, which the British and the Americans actually refined. Now that is now dying, this industrialized revolution is dying, and we are now moving into a post-human world. Will the Pope be the head of this sort of world? The fact that he is, or the church is, the leader of these billionaires who are transitioning the world into a post-human society. These are some of the questions that we have to ask ourselves. Now, this morning, Peter Escute in the Jamaica Gleaner spoke about the Pope, right? Spoke about the Pope Leo the 14th. And he says in 2023, I beg your pardon, just 2 years ago, Pope Francis brought Pope Leo the 14th, now Pope, to Rome as head, the prefect of that dicastery, and elevated him to the rank of cardinal. Francis also appointed him to sit on 7 other dicasteries, including evangelization, the Eastern churches, the doctrine of the faith, culture and education, and the governance of the Vatican city-state. I mean, these are powerful positions that you have just allowed this guy who was made cardinal, just 2 years ago. And Pope Francis brought him there and elevated him to such high a position, which suggests to me that Pope Francis had already selected this pope even before he died. Good leaders recognize leadership ability of others and engage in succession planning. This is what he's implying too. That's Peter Escute is implying. Pope Leo comes into the job with inside knowledge and personal experience of how the Vatican bureaucracy works, and is well placed to continue the administrative reforms initiated by his predecessor. So this pope is going to be a pope of the rights of the people. In 1891, he's talking now about Pope Leo the 13th. He issued a document titled New Things, Rerum Novarum in Latin, wherein he condemned the secular materialism of capitalism, socialism, and communism. In Rerum Novarum, he outlined the rights of workers to a fair wage and safe working conditions. At a time when Marxists were the main organizers of trade unions, Leo XIII defended the rights of workers to unionize. At the same time, he affirmed the right to private property, not understood in capitalist terms as free enterprise. So Leo XIII became known as the Pope of the workers. His thought has become the foundation of modern Catholic social teaching, especially about the third way between capitalism and socialism. Now, what is the third way between capitalism and socialism? The choice by Cardinal Prevost to be named Leo XIV is tantalizing in what it promises. So the Catholic Church seems to be working on an agenda to have a synthesis of capitalism and socialism. They want a synthesis. They neither want capitalism, neither do they want socialism. They want a synthesis of both economic philosophies, economic ideologies. Many analyze that the return of President Donald Trump spouting his Make America Great Again, this MAGA mantra, has led to victory at the polls in Canada, Australia, Singapore, Germany, and Greenland by strong leaders elected to handle him. Some might suggest that the election of Cardinal Prevost fits into that analysis. So he's suggesting that Cardinal Prevost has been a frequent critic of Trump policies on immigration, human rights, and the environment. The new pope has a history of support for racial justice and against capital punishment. Cardinal Prevost has challenged U.S. Vice President Vance, a convert to Catholicism just 6 years ago, over his use of his newfound faith justifies Trump's crackdown on migrants. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others, he wrote. So we're seeing where it seems like there is some contradictory opinions being actually brought forth by the Pope and also Donald J. Trump. They seem to be at loggerheads. But is that true? Are they at loggerheads, or is it that they're just playing a game? That means this is just controlled opposition, but it's not really an opposition. If the Roman Catholic Church was very instrumental in bringing Trump to power, how is it that these two people are at loggerhead? But they can be, because we saw where in Germany, where the Roman Catholic Church brought Hitler to power, but eventually they became enemies because Hitler did not allow the Roman Catholic Church to have full sway over its parishioners, its adherents. And the Roman Catholic Church wanted control of the entire country, which Hitler was not prepared to give him in terms of the Pope, right? So that is what is happening. And we want to know if this Pope, Leo the 14th, is really the Pope of the people, or is he really the Pope of the elites? If we are to believe in what the Bible says, and the Bible is correct, and Revelation 18 says that it is the mother of all harlots, it is the leader of the merchants, it controls all the merchants and the wealthy people of the world. So the Roman Catholic Church will never, in its belief system as a church, will never vouch for the rights of the workers. They will do so in theory, but they will never do so in practice. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe like the videos, so the videos can be shared with as many people on the platform. Leave your comments. Let me hear what you think. Do you think that Pope Leo the 14th is the Pope of the people? Let me know what you think in the comment section.